Welcome back, everybody. As always, my name is Justin, also known as Shit Just Works, and today we are going to be talking about all the changes that happened for the open beta of Legends of Runeterra. We have cards like Anivia. Everybody knows that was probably going to be nerfed. It was. I don't want to even call it a nerf, though. I just want to call it a change, and we'll get into that in a little bit. If you are new to the channel, definitely consider subscribing. So, if you are looking for a review of all of the open beta changes, every card, all the stuff they changed, stick around. We're going to get right into it right now. Just a forewarning, you're going to notice some of these cards I go a little bit faster over, and that is mainly because they're much more minor changes. Anivia was a large change. Some of these are very small, like adding attack or health, and you'll recognize that as we continue on through this video. So first up, we have Wraithcaller, and Wraithcaller is interesting. They actually increased the health from 2 to 3, and they also gave Wraithcaller Fearsome. So this was a serious buff to Wraithcaller. I think their idea when they first released this card was to have a deck entirely built around Wraithcaller and the summoning of an additional Mist Wraith, and I think it failed miserably because it was just too weak of a card. This makes it more competitive. It's still only like, an okay card. I wouldn't say it's incredible, but I think it's definitely worth, potentially playtesting some decks. So I think this change was completely merited. The Rekindler, honestly, I do agree with this change, but I think it could even go down to like a 4-3 or a 3-3. Again, they even say it in their text, their supporting text. Getting a champion back does not need to come with such a strong body, and even a 4-4 I think is still pretty strong. 4-4s in this game, I feel, is the difference between a 3-3 and a 4-4 is pretty huge. So I still think this should have been a little bit weaker, but I guess we'll see as the meta kind of feels itself out. Next up, we have Used Cask Salesman, and I do agree with this. I don't think this was really getting any play. This does kind of help with the overall strategy of a deck that would be playing Caustic Casks, which is to be more aggro, so the additional attack definitely plays towards that strategy. Does make it a little more playable. I haven't really seen anything crazy with the Caustic Casks, but I was playing around with a Dusk and Dawn strategy with it, so maybe I'll give that a shot again. These are some of the cards with just minor changes to make them, a little bit more playable. We got Chempunk Shredder, power up from 4 to 5. I think that's a great decision. I think it definitely makes him much more playable. Parade Electro Rig, I also like that it is given more health than attack now. It's a little bit stickier on the field, and if you're playing this in any sort of deck, it's going to be more of a combo-oriented deck, which means your main strategy is probably going to be to stall out the game. So the health is much more welcome than the attack. We have Plaza Guardian, which I'm not really, this one remains to be seen whether or not this will be good. I actually did not realize this card had quick attack, so that is interesting. This card I have yet to see in any sort of crazy good deck. I think giving it the additional attack could be good. I guess the idea is to get a 0 cost 6/6. I imagine they made this change because they felt like a 0 cost 5/5 was not worth having to wait so long to get this puppy on the field. So I think overall this might be an okay change. If there is a deck that abuses this, this might be a change they regret in the future. So we'll see what happens with this. Sump Snipe Scavenger, again, I do also think this was a pretty good change. This was not really being played. I actually tried a deck around an entirely elusive strategy using Sump Snipe Scavenger. It didn't really feel that great. So I don't know if this will really change or affect anything, but it does, make this just that little bit more playable so that people might actually try that deck type. We also have Boom Crew Rookie, which I'm not going to lie. When I first saw Boom Crew Rookie, I was like, wait, why does this have 0 attack and 4 health? Like, do you have to buff it in order to get the attack effect? I think they literally changed this for clarity, because having a 0 attack monster, like attack with 0, doesn't really make sense. It's kind of counterintuitive, so I think that was purely out of clarity. He does now do 3 damage when he attacks, so considering it's kind of like a 3-4 for 2 mana in some sort of face deck or aggro deck, this might be a lot better. And I did also try out a deck with him in it, and I think I'm going to give that a shot again. Chempunk pickpocket. Going to 3 attack, I actually don't even know. I don't agree with that. I don't think it needed 3 attack because a 2 cost 3/2 is already decent. And you also get basically drawing a card. I mean, it's an exact copy of a random spell from your opponent. I don't know. I just feel like that's not needed. I think he would have still been playable at 2 health. It might just be a little bit too much attack. And last but not least, we have back alley barkeep. So this is the last of the Piltover and Zon. And I guess one of the statements that they had made, Riot, in regards to all the P and Z modifications, is that P and Z was just very, very low as far as how much it was being played in the original beta. So they wanted to overall give the class a little bit more playability. I do think that the cards they adjusted don't really affect the anything crazy in the class, with the exception of maybe Chempunk Shredder, just because it's AoE and there's not a lot of AoE in the game right now. But I do like that they did focus on PNZ and they recognize that PNZ seemed to be lacking a little bit in the beta. Next up is Flame Chompers, and I honestly think that this needs to go back to 3 health. Yeah, I really do think that it's kind of useless at 1 or 2 health, because I guess their intent is to only tie up 1 enemy, but I don't know. Like, I just feel like it's just not that great. It's still not going to be played even at 2 health. I mean, 3 health, it has more of a chance to tie up 2 enemies, in which case it can actually provide a decent defense for any sort of discard deck. The thing is, when you're discarding, you're inherently already losing advantage, so you have to combo this with some sort of discard effect. That's an inherent disadvantage because you're having to combo so much for such little added benefit. Cloud Drinker was, yeah, duh. The first time I saw this card and I saw your burst spells can cost 2 less, they nailed it in the description. They nailed it. We're also removing the super effect on Enlightened, which was risky long term, potentially enabling infinite game-ending combos. Nuff said. So with Wording Stones and Catalyst of Aeons, I'm not sure if I agree with both of these changes. It seems like Riot is concerned a lot about ramp decks being too ramp, to put it lightly. I don't know. I just think that this kind of killed it a little bit. Not killed it, but it definitely substantially affected the deck, where it's not nearly as good as it once was. I imagine they made these changes because of the War Mother's Call, She Who Wanders deck that's been floating around. That might combat that a little bit. I think that deck wasn't really good just because of these cards. It was good because of War Mother's Call. So we'll see what happens with this. I think at least one of these probably should have stayed. Maybe the Catalyst of Aeons probably should have stayed at 4. Avarosian Hearthguard, I think, is busted. I don't understand how they can I don't understand how they can rationalize only reducing its health by 1 and being like, oh, now it's balanced. You're giving +1/+1 to all allies in your deck. That's like, let's say there's even just 10. That's +10/+10 for 5 mana. That just, to me, is broken. This should be at least a 4/4, if not like a 3/4, maybe, right? I mean, 4/4 it's probably good. So I do think that this is gonna get additional nerfs, but we'll see what happens with it. Fleet Feather Tracker, I didn't really see as too much of a problem. I could see how it could become a problem, and I do also think that the activator for this isn't really hard. Like, if you're playing it in a Demacia deck, you have plenty of allies. So I don't know. This just kind of seems like a useless nerf to me. Battlesmith, I love, not because of the card. I don't even really care about the card Battlesmith, to be honest with you. They made this change due to Expeditions, which is good that they're already giving Expeditions thought and they're supporting it, but they made it a rarity change. And the fact that they're already using rarity changes to influence how the game is played, I absolutely love. Now, granted, I do believe this is primarily an Expeditions thing because you get cards based on rarity. I don't know if rarity would really ever be able to impact the competitive space. I mean, technically, because everybody's going to have full access to the cards, it just means accessing that card earlier or later in the competitive scene. But I do love the fact that they are able to use this lever to, affect the game rather than just blindly, modifying card stats. Tryndamere. I hate this card in this game, and in League of Legends, I think they should just get rid of the card. I hate it. I feel like it's so cheesy, so cheap. It's just such a dumb card, but I mean, I guess I'm okay with the nerf because it does get rid of, one aspect, and they can't really get rid of Overwhelm or Fearsome, and then it kind of defeats the purpose of Tryndamere. I think they just need to reduce his stats a little bit, maybe down to like an 8/8. They could have even kept the tough, maybe you know, brought it down to an 8-8, and I think it would be much more balanced. Vladimir, minor change, just so that if he has multiple copies of himself, he will still trigger, you know, his level up effect, which is good, especially if you're trying to combo this with Dusk and Dawn. So, totally agree with this. Ezreal. You know, I am kind of disappointed in this because the idea of a champion creating zero-cost spells is kind of cool, but what I will say is I could definitely see how it doesn't really matter later in the game. I mean, usually Ezreal takes a little while to level up, right? So later in the game, mana is kind of not even close to being at a premium. You kind of have too much of it sometimes. So honestly, having the 2-cost Mystic Shot, I don't think is really going to impact Ezreal too much. So I do actually agree with this change. I'm disappointed because I kind of like the idea of 0 cost, 2 damage to the face. Who doesn't? And last but not least, the coup de grace in Anivia. We knew it. We knew it was coming. And I gotta say, for your first huge card change, for a card that was basically considered to be broken prior to this change, Riot nailed it. And here's why. Essentially, in Anivia's old state, she was able to be just plopped down into a aggro deck, and her effect would get off pretty early in the game, and then you can just spam multiple Olivias, and you have a never-ending chain of Anivias just all over the field. With this change, not only is she slightly more expensive, so you can't drop her until 1 turn later in the game, her effect and her level up does not happen until you are enlightened. So really, she doesn't become completely useful until at least turn 10. Anything with the word enlightened essentially in this game, you might as well just change the word enlightened to control deck or put me in a control deck because obviously an aggro or any sort of face heavy deck is not really playing for turn 10. They're playing to face you down in the first, 3, 4, 5, 6 turns. Being that Anivia from League of Legends, and this is why I love Riot so far for all the changes and all the things they've done with this game, her role is a mage, and mages scale late game, and she also had Ice Wall, right? So with that, they actually gave her the ability to block with her egg again, so that also plays to the lore of having an Ice Wall. And again, all of her effects are scaled towards the later game, which signals a control deck. So now Anivia is much more a control-oriented finisher, which is perfect. I think that's where she should have been in the first place. Riot, great job. And there you have it. Those are all the changes for the Legends of Runeterra open beta as we have them now. I'm sure a ton more will come down the pipe by the time the full game releases. Looking forward to any changes they make with this game, and you can bet that you will find every single change on this channel, as well as how it's going to affect you, the player. So until next time, everybody stay positive and peace out.